The jury reached a verdict for a man charged with killing 2 people in Bigfork. The trial of Derek Jackson reached a split verdict after hearing closing statements from the prosecution and defense. MTN's Derek Joseph was there to recap what happened in the Flathead District Courtroom.
A man charged with killing 2 people in Bigfork in 2022 was just found guilty on 1 count of deliberate homicide by a jury Monday afternoon.
To the charge of count 1, deliberate homicide, Tricia DeMoss, not guilty. To the charge of count 2, deliberate homicide, Stanley Grotberg, guilty.
Derek Jackson was found guilty in the death of Stanley Grotberg in October of 2022. However, the jury found Jackson not guilty of deliberate homicide in the death of his mother, Tricia DeMoss. The jury heard the closing statements from the prosecution and defense Monday morning in Flathead County District Court. The prosecuting attorneys presented evidence of the case before encouraging the jury to find Jackson guilty.
Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence in this case has shown that on October 28, 2022 at 120 Esteban Lane, the defendant, Derek Jackson, killed his mother, Tricia DeMoss, and her boyfriend, Stanley Grotberg, when he fired 2 bullets from a Smith & Wesson pistol into each of their heads.
The defense said in their closing statement they believed Grotberg killed DeMoss and Jackson killed Grotberg in retaliation, and there was not enough evidence to convict Jackson for these murders.
How many questions do we have that are unanswered? I can think of dozens, if not at least 100 myself. But what has been presented to you, what has not been presented to you, should cause you a lot of questions. And the questions are imperative because they all add up to reasonable doubt. One question is enough for reasonable doubt.
Jackson is scheduled to be sentenced on April 29th. In Kalispell, Derek Joseph, MTN News.
And a Montana brewery is bracing for the impact of tariffs. It comes just days after the Trump administration announced sweeping tariffs impacting steel and aluminum. MTN's Andrea Lutz takes you to Meadowlark Brewery in Billings, one of the first in the state to start canning its own product, to see how they're adjusting for this impact.
All right, you ready, Tim? Go.
Inside Meadowlark Brewery.
Today we're going to can our ramrod.
The machines are fired up.
A light pilsner for us.
It's a process done regularly around here.
And on average, we're doing about 40 to 42 cans per minute.
Trying to move product to consumers as spring and summer ramp up.
And yeah, I think it's a great way to get beer out to your favorite places.
But also coming down the line for owner Travis Peterson, tariffs.
So we knew aluminum was going to be affected. We didn't know how soon.
He says a recent letter from one of their aluminum suppliers was an indication.
They were anticipating an increase in the aluminum coming to them. And because of that, they were just going to do a flat 3 to 5% raise to all of their customers.
So we started crunching the numbers.
It seems like pennies, right? So a penny or 2 per can, how could that possibly harm me? But we're buying cans at 25 pallets a whack, which fills 1 semi.
Meadowlark seals and stamps over 600,000 cans a year, and Peterson says adding a 5% tariff on that will end up costing the company an additional $6,000 a year.
Yeah, it's going to add up, and somewhere that's going to eat into my bottom line.
And he says yours too.
This just creates a ton of uncertainty.
MSU economist Joel Schumacher says it's hard to predict how tariffs will play out long term. So in the meantime, it's up to consumers and business owners to decide how much more they're willing to spend.
And we don't want to underestimate the ingenuity of our business owners. Amazing group of folks that will look for different opportunities to streamline their business, to make it more efficient. And the same on the consumer side. You're going to see people adapt, make changes.
Change is something Meadowlark is used to.
And so, yeah, we have to be mindful of where the market is shifting.
So he'll keep looking for ways to be more efficient as the price of cans steepen.
How can we get more out of what we're already doing?
And in the meantime, find ways to keep other costs down so beer drinkers keep coming back. In Billings, Andrea Lutz, MTN News.
Again, Peterson tells MTN News his aluminum suppliers are located in the U.S. Still, he's since heard from at least 2 now, indicating their prices will go up.
Well, we got a little little bit of everything across the region right now. We've got some sunshine, we got a lot of cloud cover, we got some mountain snow, we've got some rain in the lower elevations, and we've got some strong winds. So a lot of things to break down when we get to the main forecast coming up here in just a few minutes. But temperatures across the region are around, and we're going 40s, 50s, and 60s. Highs today, 50s and 60s. Some of us a good 10 degrees cooler than we were yesterday behind this cold front. And of course, we're talking about the mountain snow and the lower elevation rain. Some areas have a chance to see some isolated thunderstorms today. Could give us gusty winds up to 50 miles an hour, and we could see some small hail. We'll tell you about that too coming up. And also, it's very windy across portions of the area. How long will this last? All the details coming up in just a bit.
In today's leading look, Billings City Council members are learning more about potentially putting together an authority for the Billings-Logan International Airport. City Aviation and Transit Director Jeff Roach says forming an airport authority could provide a number of advantages, including enhancing business in the area. Roach says 40% of airports nationwide operate with an airport authority. And a suspect is now facing charges in a tire slashing spree in Forsyth over the weekend. More than 40 tires were damaged, 14 vehicles and 4 trailers included. The sheriff's office arrested 22-year-old Brandon Daniel Franklin on Sunday, charging him with criminal mischief, theft, criminal trespass to property, burglary, and firing a firearm inside city limits. And Montana State University will soon have a new president. Dr. Brock Tessman has verbally accepted the position as the university's 13th president. Tessman is currently serving as the president of Northern Michigan University, but he's no stranger to Montana. He served in several prominent roles, including Deputy Commissioner for Academic Affairs in the Montana University system and Dean of the Davidson Honors College at U of M. Tessman will take over for President Waded Cruzado, who's set to retire after 15 years at the helm.
He's got great skills, he's got a great sense of purpose and a great commitment to the land-grant mission and to opening and broadening access to higher education for all sorts of different people. So it's really a good fit for MSU, and, you know, we're just ready to get going with him.
Tessman is expected to step into the role starting July 1st of 2025. And in Helena, the Montana legislature is now 3/4 of the way through its 69th session, and lawmakers are continuing to move bills forward, including a series of proposals dealing with healthcare and public services. MTN senior political reporter Jonathan Ambarian has a closer look at some of the bills debated in the House on Monday.
With just over 20 days left in the 2025 legislative session, we've reached the point where the policy in the bill isn't the only thing that matters. The price tag is also a key factor. The House had another lengthy agenda Monday, going through bills that appropriate state money. Several of them already passed initial votes on the House floor, but came back after they went through what lawmakers call a haircut, when the House Appropriations Committee tweaks a bill to reduce its budget impact. They include HB 185, which previously allowed children under 6 to stay on the Healthy Montana Kids insurance program for 3 years, regardless of changes in their family's income.
Probst cut that back to 2 years in an amendment, which means there'll be more frequent eligibility determinations for these kids, but it's still better than the annual review that these kids go through now.
And HB 456, which would expand a program that helps people pay child care costs to serve more workers in child care facilities.
I'm confident that this bill, as amended, will reduce turnover among child care workers.
The House also gave initial approval to a bill that would split up the largest state agency, the Montana Department of Public Health and Human Services. HB 851 would create a Department of Health Services, which would be responsible for a variety of mental health and long-term care services, including running the Montana State Hospital in Warm Springs. Supporters said the department's in need of greater efficiency. Opponents said they should give more time before making such a big change.
The institutions in particular have suffered from benign neglect for 30 years. And now we have a crisis.
I'd ask that you give the system a little bit of patience, a little bit of grace.
Also on Monday, the House passed HB 2, the main state budget bill, on a final vote, sending it over to the Senate, where there are hearings expected later this week. In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
With spring's arrival, most of us are headed out into Montana's great outdoors. And when that happens, you'll most likely come across the state's abundant wildlife, including Montana's returning bird population. But this year, as MTN's Chet Lehman says, you need to be more aware, especially with avian influenza continuing to spread.
Spring, a busy time for Montana's migratory bird population. That means we're going to see more of them on the landscape as they make their way back from their winter travels. That also means we all need to be a little more vigilant of highly pathogenic avian influenza, also known as bird flu.
We know it's still here. We know it's continuing, but it's just important that we take steps to prevent the spread to ourselves, to our domestic animals, and continue that monitoring to know what that disease prevalence and distribution looks like.
FWP is asking anyone recreating this spring to be on the lookout for birds, flocks of them, living or dead.
River channels, community ponds are another place, as well as agricultural areas. So oftentimes these are places where people are out recreating, and so be on the lookout for that.
To help prevent the spread of HPAI, Jacobson reminds pet owners to keep them away from the birds, for the bird safety and for their own.
If you have a pet with you, like your dog, make sure you keep your dog away from those wild birds, especially if there are dead birds on the landscape. Avoid that contact, and then depending on what you find, if you see multiple dead birds in an area, call Fish, Wildlife and Parks and let us know.
FWP will evaluate each reported incident and investigate if it is warranted. The Montana Department of Livestock also has great resources on avian influenza and some safety tips to help prevent it from being spread to domestic populations. Out amongst Montana's migratory birds returning from winter, Chet Lehman, MTN News.
And still to come on your statewide noon news, back in the nest. What makes Iris the osprey so unique as she returns home to Missoula? We have that story coming up, but first, right after this, we've got your full forecast. Stay with us.
Storm Tracker weather starts now with meteorologist Miller Robson.
It is breezy to windy and will be that way all the way through tomorrow, but some areas are seeing some of those stronger winds, and that's where we have the high wind warning and lake wind advisory in effect. Let's go ahead and drill down on this. First off, the high wind warning until 5 p.m. today. Eastern Glacier, Western Tool, Central Pend Oreille until 5 p.m. Gust sustained out of the west, 35 to 45 miles an hour, but we could have some gusts up to 60 miles an hour. We're seeing some strong winds, maybe not as strong as that, but still 40 to 50 miles an hour already. Also, lake wind advisory in effect until tomorrow night. Fort Peck Lake, if you're going to be up there boating in a small craft, just be mindful of that. Could be dangerous for you. West wind sustained 15 to 25 miles an hour and gusts up to about 40 miles an hour expected. Now, with that high wind warning, don't be surprised if they stretch it out until tomorrow, or even at least give us a wind advisory, because it is windy today. You can see those gusts up and down the front there in the 40s. Helena, though, gust of 35, got a gust of 32 in Lewistown. Billings, a gust of 23. You can see it's somewhat windy over on the eastern side of the state as well. It'll kind of calm down tonight, and then as we get into tomorrow, those winds will start to pick right back up again. So don't let your guard down. If you drive a high-profile vehicle, especially in areas that we know where we get the winds, just be mindful of that as you're driving tomorrow. Might want to delay traveling or just find an alternate route. But wouldn't be surprised if we see some type of advisory kick back in again tomorrow for those windy areas, the usual suspects there. So as a live look at the Doppler, you can see we have some mountain snow and some lower elevation rain. Some areas could get some thunderstorms off of this today. You want to keep an eye on those areas that are shaded in red. That's where you can see that heavy rainfall, and that's where we have the possibility of seeing some isolated thunderstorms. We are seeing some sunshine out there, and what that's doing, and that's just kind of adding to the instability aloft, okay? Now, as we get into tomorrow, things will kind of calm down. We'll still see some of that lingering moisture, but high pressure will start to take over maybe as early as tomorrow afternoon, get a break Thursday, Friday, and then we start to see another system coming in that's going to give us a chance of more showers and maybe mountain snow, of course, as we head across the weekend. But there's the areas there in that green shaded area where we have a chance to see some isolated thunderstorms today. They're not going to be widespread, very isolated in nature. And if you do have a thunderstorm pop up, gusty winds up to 50 miles an hour, periods of some very heavy rainfall, and we could possibly see some small hail with some of these storms. And you can see that front that we're behind is going to cool us down a bit today. There's that area of low pressure sliding to the north, so we do have some wraparound wind on that. High pressure dominating as we get into Thursday, mainly most of Friday, but western parts of the state could probably start to see some of that moisture move back in as we have another system heading our way. So we do have a chance of rain on and off through tomorrow in Kalispell and Missoula. Some snow mixing in overnight into tomorrow morning. Dry on Thursday. And Missoula actually has a chance to get into the 70s. And then that chance of rain returning Friday and Saturday for your areas, probably on Sunday as well. Windy through tomorrow in Great Falls and Helena. We could have gusts 30 to 40 miles an hour. Helena could get a shower or two through tonight. Great Falls a chance to crack the 70s as we get into Thursday and Friday. Do have a chance of showers through tonight in Bozeman and Butte. Some snow mixing in late tonight, early tomorrow morning. Dry for the rest of the week, and then rain trying to return as we head into the weekend. Windy through tomorrow in Cody with gusts to 30 to 40 miles an hour, maybe a shower or two. Sheridan, one of those areas that could get an isolated thunderstorm today. Glendive looking pretty good today. Billings a chance to see one of those isolated thunderstorms this afternoon. Remember, gust up to 50 miles an hour. Small hail and pockets of heavy rainfall possible. Friday, warm for both areas, flirting with 80.
The MTN Noon News continues right after this. From Montana's news leader, you're watching the MTN Noon News.
Finally, Missoula's osprey nest is no longer empty. Iris is home. Iris, Missoula's beloved osprey and one of the oldest known birds of her species, returned to her nest yesterday morning. Iris's home above the banks of the Clark Fork is right next to Riverside Health and Rehabilitation Center. MTN's Emily Brown spoke with staff who welcomed back Iris in style.
For those like me who were anxiously awaiting Iris's return, it might have ruffled your feathers, but no fear, she is back in the nest.
She's right here in our parking lot, and they love her. They can't wait to have her.